Welcome to Scale Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show with me, Brenda Hector. I'm a business growth specialist helping business owners to develop themselves and grow their businesses so they can achieve their goals and enjoy the lifestyle they dream of. I'm on a mission to revolutionise the entrepreneurial landscape for women in business. In every podcast episode, I interview someone who has an inspiring story or some great advice for women aiming to start or scale their businesses. If you're new to the show, take a moment to subscribe and listen to some of the previous episodes. There's over 100 here. If you're new to, just on that bit. And check out the Facebook community. Just search for Scale Her Up and join in. I just missed my word in there. Never mind, I've got the message across. And today, I'm really pleased to have Paula Paterson from FidesOak with me today. Paula, thank you for joining me. It's early in the morning as well. So thank you. Tell me then, let's just get started. What does FidesOak do?
So FidesOak is a consultancy and we are interested in organisational cultural transformation, which is a bit of a mouthful. So what we focus on is encouraging and developing high-performing teams within an organisation, because teams en masse will then influence and affect the culture. So it's almost like creating a high-performing virus from within the organization and letting it spread. So we do that through measurement. We're able to do a number of measurements within a culture. So it gives us a good baseline to work with, but also gives us what to focus on. Because if you go at these things scattergun, you really don't get the best results. It gets diluted down. And then we create programs that focus on the findings of a diagnostic. And that can be focused on leadership. It can be focused on psychological safety. It can be a combination of things. And the program will be workshops. There will be coaching involved in those. There may be elements of consultancy and mentoring in there. And then what we hope to do when we leave is transfer capability back into the client, because cultural shifts don't take months, they take years, which is why we want to infect it from within so it becomes self-sustaining. So as we come to the end of any program, it's about upskilling the right people within the organization to take that baton and continue to run with it. So that's what we do. So as an organization, we're made up of people that come from technical backgrounds, because we mostly work in high hazard industries. And some of our team come from social sciences backgrounds, which is me. I'm from the social sciences, which makes for a nice combination, just makes for a nice combination. My history, I describe it as checkered, probably not the best way to describe myself, but I've been a long time in learning and development. It's 25 years in learning and development, plus the social sciences on top of that. So I'm not actually from the high hazard industry that came into them 15 years ago. But it's coming into industries without influence and bias. It gives you clean eyes to see the things that perhaps the industry has stopped seeing. And that's human nature. That's not a judgment. And it stood me in good stead over the years. The last 15 years, it allows me to ask the stupid question.
I'm the same. I'm coming in. The people that I work with know their industry. They know how to deliver their product or service.
Yes.
As an outsider, I can ask the silly questions, but actually gets them thinking differently about their organisation.
Absolutely. And I think you make a good point. We recruit people because they are the most competent to fulfill that role at the time of recruitment. That's the point of recruitment. So my job isn't to tell them how to do their job. We very much focus on, I call them non-technical skills. I tend not to use the term soft skills because it suggests it's easy, and it isn't. So I'm not there to tell them how to do their jobs. What I'm there to offer, like you said, is new ways of thinking about how they go about things, not necessarily what they're doing, offering new approaches to leadership, perhaps, that they've not tried before. And that's my job. So I think when we work with people, we accept that they have probably got world-class processes and procedures, and that people know what they're doing, but for some reason they're choosing not to follow a procedure that day, or they're choosing to do it differently that day. And that's what we explore, why that day. So yeah, interesting work. I enjoy them.
So
I enjoy being in high hazard.
I'm going to take you back to the high performing virus. So
Yes.
I think this is brilliant. So that you're infecting the high performing good behavior and
Yes.
the culture that you're looking for, and that's going to spread throughout the team. But I guess the opposite, the poor performing virus has probably
Yes.
got in there already.
Yes. There are elements of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a book called The Barcelona Way. I can't say that I've ever read it because I don't like football, and that's what it's in relation to. However, my business, it's not actually in relation to football. It's actually in relation to culture and leadership, but it's within football. It's like reading this is not actually about rugby. It's about leadership, but it uses the flag. But my business partner's read it, and he has introduced me to two terms: cultural architects and cultural assassins. And this comes from the Barcelona Way.
Yeah.
I use these terms a lot. And I would say within any culture, there are probably more cultural architects than there are cultural assassins. The cultural assassins are in a minority. Sadly, in some cultures, they may have the louder voice or the voice that is heard more. Our job is to find the cultural architect because there are more of them. And when we do measurements, when we do the diagnostics and we give the feedback, and we want organizations to give the feedback to the whole organization, you'll watch a room full of people nodding. They recognize what they're hearing. So almost what we're giving is these cultural architects the permission to make the change that they want to see.
Hmm.
Our job is to facilitate them. So actually, the virus isn't that difficult to start if it's started in the right way. And there was a study done, I think it was the BBC that did the study. It's something that I read many years ago. And there was an interest in why large global movements got the traction that they did. And it was the Greta Thunberg movement that they were particularly interested in very early doors. And then there were other movements that came behind that, like Black Lives Matter and things like that. And they were interested in what it took to create the momentum in these movements and why they were so successful. And the same number appeared over and over again, 3.5%. All it takes is around 3.5% to create the momentum needed to make quite enormous cultural shifts. Now, I'm thinking about this thinking, and how do you do that? What is this 3.5%? It must be the cultural architects. It must be the people who are really committed to making these changes that have real passion and drive. And they were just looking for something to facilitate that, to galvanize that. And I found that really interesting.
Yeah. No, just something small gets it started. And
Yeah. And so it doesn't take a great deal if the facilitation of it is right. And it's not always us. The facilitation has to come from within the organization. That's the leadership team as well. And I use leadership in a very broad term. I don't just mean the very senior people, but not obviously, but it should start there. And we're talking about Edgar Sheen's work there about leaders creating cultures. But yeah, if the environment is right, if there is permission within that environment to do the right thing culturally, if an enabling environment is created, then it creates space for people who want to make change, see change. It allows them to create that momentum.
And what about speed then?
Yeah.
So how you said it could take years. So yeah, do some businesses get there faster?
Not in my experience, because businesses tend to come to us because they are not they haven't reached where they want to be. Businesses tend not to come to us because they're outstanding. We would probably never see Google come to our door or people like that. What we tend to get is organizations coming to us for whatever reason. They're looking for support. Some of them are actually quite proactive in that, where nothing has happened that's driving it. They just want to improve performance for whatever reason. The transition's driving that a little bit at the moment, because we're watching some oil and gas organizations trying to transition into another field. So they're trying to go from gas storage to hydrogen storage, or they're trying to get into carbon capture, these kinds of things. So they come to us to help create that shift into something different. You know what I mean? Some organizations come to us because it's high hazard, because they've had incidents. They've not necessarily had outcomes as the result of an incident, negative outcomes, but they've certainly had incidents and they want to address these. So they come to us for different reasons, but it tends to be because they want to see change. So they're starting from a place which is less than perfect.
So there'll be a bit of dissatisfaction and a vision for where they could be, but they don't know how to get there.
Exactly. They know they need to get there, but they don't know how to do it. And they don't know what the starting point is always. They have an idea, but they don't know what the starting point is always. So there's a journey to go on as a result of that. And it's well written about. Cultural shifts take between 3 and 5 years. But also what you're working with is a starting point. And it depends on where that starting point is and where the end result wants to be. That has an influence as well. It depends on the commitment of the organization. And that's really challenging at the moment, how committed an organization can be to these kinds of things. Some of it is to do with patience. And I think we occupy the space currently, and this might also be your experience, where people, organizations don't have the patience for the big changes that they want to say, because you are in it for the long haul. They want to say quick fixes. And that, again, is not a judgment. This is being influenced by whatever circumstance they find themselves in. But there's not really quick fixes in cultural change. There'll be small wins within that you can see. I often talk to people. I use a metaphor. It's like watching children grow up. When you spend every day with a child, you don't see that growth because you're spending every day with them. And culture's the same. If you're in it every day, you don't see the growth. But I know from my own childhood, I know from my own son as well, when he hasn't seen members of my family for a period of time, one of the first things that they say to him is, "Oh my God, haven't you grown?" Because I haven't seen him for a long time. And culture kind of works the same way. So when you're within it, it's so incremental sometimes that you don't see it. But it is there, it's happening. You just have you need to have the patience. And I was working with a client, and one of their team they're part of a group of people that were working with us, said it's like when you get on the scale and you see what your weight is and you're trying to lose weight, it's not about what the numbers say. It's about how well your genes start to fit and how good they feel. That's what culture's like.
So I guess the fact that you guys are measuring,
Yes.
you start off by making some measurements and that, so you've got some data there, and so you're tracking the growth. You've got a wall there.
Yeah. I mean, we need to do that because we're in high hazard industries, and high hazard industries work with data. They work with numbers. So there's no point in talking to in a language that's not familiar to them at all. Yeah, we do measure. We measure a baseline. It is data driven. It's both qualitative and quantitative data. Both of those are in there. But we do have a tool as well that allows us to monitor the progress of a program. And it's based on observation, mostly. But there's a way of tracking. There is a way of tracking data as well, how often you see things. So there is some numerical stuff in there as well. So we are able to track some of these things. And we use what people would recognize as a behavioral framework. We call it habits framework because habits are the things that have stuck. Behaviors are things, I could ask you to change a behavior today and you would for today, but you may not do it tomorrow. A habit is something that's stuck. You are now doing this over and over again. So we call them habits. We track it using a behavioral framework, which is based on the 5 elements of our model, which is quite well tested in psychology. And we can talk about the 5 elements. So everything that we do has a scientific basis to it. It isn't things that we've just made up. It's come from somewhere. We're measuring it against this behavioral framework. So yeah, we are able to show at the start of a program and at the end of a program if we've made a difference or not. We're able to track it all the way through. And part of that is showing a client if they're getting a return on investment, but it keeps us honest as well. It's about whether we're making a difference. And if the numbers don't look right, if we're tracking it and it's not going in the direction we want it to, then we need to evaluate what we're doing.
Yeah.
We can't keep going full steam ahead if we're not having the impact that we want to see. So yeah, it's about keeping us honest as well. So yeah, we are able to track it, and it is based in science, and there is elements of qualitative and quantitative data in that because we know who we're talking to. We know our audience.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Tell me about Paula then. Tell me about your journey. So you're a director of, were you a founder or?
Yes. Yeah, I was a
Yeah.
founder as well. Yeah,
So
yeah. I'm one of three.
when did you start it and why?
So FidesOak was started. Oh, this is an interesting story. Strap in for this one. FidesOak was started in 2019, December. And our managing director we'd worked together before. So the managing director and the finance director, we'd all worked together before. And I got a phone call from him because he'd already left our previous organisation at that point, so with the FD, to say that they just won a contract and can I come and join them? So I was like, yes, I can do that. That would be great. So I left a relatively stable job to be a founder of a new company. And it was because of my learning and development knowledge. That's what they wanted to bring to the party because the MD is very technical, the FD is very numerical. So we all bring something different to the organisation. By March 2020, as we were in our first lockdown, so the company was 3 months old at that point. So it was a ride for sure. But we all had a really solid belief in what FidesOak could do. FidesOak wasn't called FidesOak at that point. We were actually calling ourselves a new company, because it was just a name to trade under for a period of time. And it was an interesting 3 months. We had a contract, so we did have money coming in, which was helpful. And the 3 months of lockdown gave us an opportunity to really evaluate what is FidesOak? What is it about? The name came about at that point. What is it we're going to do? What is it we want to achieve? What is it we want to offer? It allowed us to do all of that in that 3-month period. So we took that as an opportunity. So the name Fid is a Roman goddess of trust, honesty, and sincere intent, which is our company values. That was really important to us. And the oak tree is about sustainability and strength and wisdom. That's where the name comes from.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
it's a lovely name. And it has meaning because it's what we want to achieve for ourselves. It's what we want to achieve for our clients. So we came up with a name. And we were really fortunate because Eddie, our managing director, has a very strong network. So we connected with our network and we won some contracts. And because we were working in the high hazard industries, they were able to continue running during the lockdowns. People were able to continue to work because they were gas terminals, because they were offshore oil and gas. We need them to keep working. They were providing energy for the UK at the time. As one of the MDs of one of the companies we were working with said, it's us that are keeping the hospitals open. And he wasn't lying at the time. So as a result, and by proxy, we were allowed to work with them because we were also seen as their support mechanism. We traveled the country by car because we couldn't travel any other way at the time. We had an agreement between ourselves, myself and the MD, because it was only us, that we would create a bubble. And we spoke to our families about this because if one of us got COVID, it meant that the other one also had to isolate as a result. And it would affect the families as well. So we spoke about that and we all agreed that's okay because we wanted to get the company off the ground. And we went everywhere by car. And we carried letters from all of our clients to say that we were their support mechanism. We were working with them. So if we got stopped by the police, we could show the police these letters. This was actually really legitimate. And it was really hard work. It was really hard work to start with because you were forever in a car. You were forever traveling. And some of the distances that we were traveling were like 6 hours worth of driving, 6 or 7 hours worth of driving, but you couldn't use public transport at the time. And we were staying in Airbnbs because you couldn't stay in hotels. And it was that kind of stuff that we were having to do. And we really had to evaluate our approach because a lot of what we do is classroom based, or it was face-to-face coaching. And then all of a sudden we couldn't do it. And we needed to look at a different way of doing things. So we looked for technology to help us and we explored what technology was out there. And at the time, Teams wasn't very good. So we had to look at other things that we were able to use and really pushed it hard because we needed to educate our clients that we didn't need to be present for this to be successful. They needed to have faith in that themselves. It was education for all of us at that time. Yeah. But we were very fortunate, and we were one of the more fortunate companies that very early on, within the first couple of years, we had a very steep trajectory of success. And we won some quite significant contracts with mining companies, with oil and gas companies. And we worked very hard at this. And for a long time, it was Eddie and I who were very operational, and we had our FD as well. But we started to take people on. We started to employ people because we needed the help. We needed administrative help, and then we needed project management help because you can't do it all. But we use an associate model. So we actually employ very few people. A lot of our delivery vehicles are associate. It's just a safer model for us to use. It protects the business. Yeah, so I came into the business as bringing my L&D expertise, bringing my social sciences into the business as well, it's been a lovely combination working with technical people. And to be honest, it was because our MD, Eddie, really believed in me. He really believed in what I could bring to the business and that I could really contribute something of value. And every day over the last 5 or 6 years, I've made it my mission to prove that. But he's put their faith in me. So it's up to me to prove every day that they didn't make a mistake.
I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure they didn't. What have you learned about Paula on this journey then, on the 6 years since the founding of FidesOak?
That is a really good question. And it has been a real journey of discovery. It has been, in fact, probably that journey of discovery started about 15 years ago when I came into high hazard. Because when I say my career history is checkered, it really is, because I started life as a office junior. I was a beauty therapist after that. So you couldn't be any further removed. After I got my degree, I came into learning and development, and I worked in retail, and then I went into local authority and then into high hazard. So the whole of my career has been a learning journey. Everything from the minute I walked out of school to now has been a journey. And I think that you need to reflect on that because that's got you to where you are today. However,
I'm just thinking let's take it back to those measurements of height on the wall. So actually how you've grown, looking back to see how you've grown over the years. A lot of my guests actually tell me that this is quite a powerful moment of reflection when I ask these questions. So tell me about your growth then.
So I would say when I first left school, no, I left school and walked into a job and I did the job and I didn't really think about it. It was when I was a beauty therapist, actually. I liked the job. It allowed me to be really creative. I was a closet artist, I think. I would have loved to have been a fashion designer or an interior designer. But I left school in the 80s and girls didn't do that kind of stuff. They went and did office jobs. So that's what I did. So anyway, I went into beauty therapy and it allowed me to be a little bit more creative. And I enjoyed that side of myself, that creative side. And I realized quite quickly that when you close the door, the person in the room with you, your client, will tell you almost anything. And I got to learn so much about my clients. They disclosed so much where I thought I could be in a different career and doing this for a living, which was psychology. So I left a job. It wasn't a well-paid job and it was hard work. I left a job and I went to university at the age of 26. I was classed as a mature student. And that was probably where the learning of Paula began properly, because I went to college first to do an HND because none of my family had been in higher education. So I didn't have a yardstick. I didn't have anything to make a comparison with or to offer me guidance. So I went on to do an HND and I'd left school nearly 10 years prior to that and realized I didn't know how to write an essay. I didn't know how to use a library. And I found it really daunting and the deadlines were coming at me really quickly to submit work. And I walked out of college within weeks. And there was a woman at the college who was a lovely woman, phoned me and she said, "What happened?" And I told her, "I can't do this. It's 10 years since I've left school. I just can't meet the deadlines. I don't know how to write an essay. I don't know how to use a library. I don't know how to read a book properly anymore. I don't know how to do this." And she says, "Come back. We have a different course that you can try." And it was an access course, which I don't think exists anymore. But an access to university gave you automatic entry into university, but it taught you all the skills that you needed to get to university. So it was about essay writing using library, how to reference properly, how to extract information properly, all that, how to analyze. But my access was in social sciences. And that's what got me into university. I got straight in off the back of that. And that was a big learn as well, because I had to learn how to be educated again. And the first year was really tough as a mature student, but I found other mature students and that was great. And I embraced the whole university thing. It wasn't just the learning, it was the lifestyle that went with it. So I did go to the pubs, I did go to the nightclubs. I fully immersed myself in the whole student thing.
There's growth there as well.
Absolutely, of course there is. And I started my degree as psychology, realised it wasn't for me and switched over to sociology. I was doing both anyway. And decided that sociology was the thing that I wanted to do, because sociology is about debate. There are no right and wrong answers. There's conversation, there's discussion. And I enjoyed that exploration. It was something that I really discovered about myself, was I enjoyed exploring all of the grey, all of the different perspectives, all of the different viewpoints. So I would have been absolutely useless at science or engineering, anything like that, where it was black and white. So that was a big discovery for me at that point, was that whole love the grey, love people, love understanding what influences people, where those influences come from. That's what sociology is about. It's like, how does the external influence the person? And I loved all of that stuff. And I was working for House of Fraser in Aberdeen. I don't know if you remember, but there was a store in Aberdeen. I was working there part-time. That was my student job. And they asked if I wanted to be a trainer for the store. And I took that on. I trained new people as they came into the store to use tills and customer services and that kind of stuff. And then a job came up at head office about 2 months before I graduated, went for an interview, was offered the job as I pretty much walked out of the interview. And that was down south. I was in Aberdeen at the time, and I travelled to Swindon for the interview and then came home on the plane a little bit shell-shocked. I'd just been offered a job 2 months before I'd graduated, and I took it. And me and my now husband, he wasn't then, moved. We moved to Swindon, and I worked for House of Fraser for 5 years in their head office as their, first of all, IT trainer, and then I went into customer services and then did a bit of leadership work and was responsible for 16,000 people's learning and development needs. That was 61 stores right across the country. And then Keith and I decided that we wanted family and were unsuccessful in that and wanted to adopt. So we decided to move back to Aberdeen to allow us to do that, because we have family in Aberdeen. My family's from Aberdeen. And that's what brought us back to Aberdeen, was really this want for a family and this want to adopt. So I came out of, I stayed with House of Fraser for a while and worked remotely, and then I moved into local authority. And during that period, we adopted our son, Ollie. And then I read an advert one day that said, "Do you want to make a difference?" That was the opening line. And I loved being in learning, and it was an absolute calling. It was an absolute vocation. And I loved it so much. That strapline on that advert just talked to me, because that's what gets me out of bed every day. I want to make a difference, and I can in what I do. And I went for an interview, and it was with a company called Optimus 7th Generation, and again, got the job. And that was my introduction to high hazard industry. So everything, every experience that I've ever had has in some way given me growth. It's helped me realize something about myself. It's helped me explore my creative side, that's not in painting, and it's not in writing poetry. It's in something else. And it's actually in learning and development, helping people make their working day a little bit better than it might have been. And I thoroughly enjoy that. I thoroughly enjoy being around people. It's tested me sometimes, particularly recently. It's been very testing recently, because high hazard couldn't have been any further away from retail. I don't have a safety background. I don't have a technical background, but I have a fairly decent moral compass. So it's guided me through some of the safety stuff. But it's my interest in human beings that's carried me through. And it's my desire to make a difference and to make people's working lives better. And when I came into high hazard, I realized then it was bigger than that. It was actually making sure that people got home in the same condition that they arrived in,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Making
and
sure that people go home to their families after their.
absolutely. And it becomes noble work all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's not just about making your working day better. This is significant.
Yeah. Saving lives.
And then coming into FidesOak, it was a huge growth into, right, now I'm running a company and I have legal obligations and I'm responsible for people who are employed by us or associates who are looking to us to provide work for them. And I have all of these responsibilities now. And it was in the detail. All of a sudden, I had to find the confidence and find my space and lean into that space and hold that space as a director with other directors and other CEOs. That was a relatively new experience. And that's where Eddie kind of came in, because he talks about be confident in your eminence, be confident in your education, in your experience, in your L&D experience, because that's now 25 years long. Be confident and lean into that, and I did. And it does come from that. It comes from that a lot. And I haven't rested on my laurels in high hazard industry. I've learned the industry. I make a point of learning the industry. Can I change a valve? No. I know what a double block and bleed is. Could I do it? No. You know what I mean? I can't do any of these things, but I have been underground in a mine. I have been on an offshore asset. I have been on a construction site. I have my own set of coveralls. I will roll my sleeves up and get dirty, because I think for me to do what I do with my client and not experience what their working environment looks like is insulting to them. So I make myself do these things. And honestly, I'm terrified most of the time. It's going underground in a mine. I had no idea what that experience was going to be like. None. And I only knew what TV looked like. You went in with canaries and pit ponies and it was all held up with bits of wood. And it's not like that at all. It's really not like that at all. In fact, the scariest thing is the mine that I went into had no toilet. And so what do I do? I'm a lady of a particular age. I was probably the only woman down there at the time. What do I do? But it's so hot down there. I shouldn't talk about this in a podcast. But it's so hot down there, you're actually quite dehydrated.
Okay.
50 degrees down there. But yeah, I never know what to expect. It's like you open a door and you really don't know what's on the other side. But I'm so grateful for all the experiences I've had. And that's really made me who I am today. All of that. Every one of them.
So was entrepreneurship, did you always want to have your own business, or just by circumstance? Yeah.
No, I never wanted to have my own business. I never thought I would be a manager of anybody. I never really had those ambitions. It was never carved out. It was never a goal. It was very opportunistic, and I met people that created those opportunities for me. What I always wanted to do was be the best version of myself that I could be. That was my ambition. That was my drive. It's an internal motivator for me. And I wanted to do the best work that I could do for the people that I do it for, which is the people who receive what I do. So I do a lot of reading and I attend a lot of courses myself, and I do a lot of these things, and I engage with a lot of people who help me do these things. And I'm very much an opportunist. It's like when an opportunity presents itself, I do take it. And one of my mantras is feel the fear and do it anyway. And it has been a mantra of life, because there's fear in all of it, but there's growth that comes out of that as well. You can't just cruise through life in your comfort zone. There's no growth in there. So yeah, it's been a very opportunistic thing, but I've taken the opportunities nonetheless. I've not avoided them either. And I make a lot of opportunities.
So lots of the women that I've interviewed are the same. Some have always wanted to have their own business. Others have fallen into the opportunity.
Yeah.
Other than feel the fear and do it anyway, what other advice would you give to women that have found themselves here running a business?
I think I read the book Lean In, and that was and it was a long time ago that I read that book. And I think that book had quite a big influence on me. And it was the term as well, lean in. You need to lean in. You need to lean into the role. You need to lean into the expectations of the role. The biggest thing for me was lean into your own eminence, understand what you're good at. You know what I mean? And lean into that. Am I a good manager? You would have to ask the people that I manage that question. I do the best that I can every day. You know what I mean? Am I a good entrepreneur? I do the best that I can every day. There is fear in that. I have to go to conferences and speak now. I have to spend time with people who aren't from the industry that I've come from. They're not from my background, but I have to hold my space and I use my eminence to do that. And it's find confidence from somewhere. And there is an element of fake it until you make it, to be honest. Sometimes that confidence is seriously faked until it gets to a point where I'm actually believing it myself. I do connect with other women that are in these positions. I found that helpful to be
Yes.
around them, watch them, observe how they go about things, listen to them. And I connect with groups where their focus is women within that industry, like women in mining, those kinds of things, because I find them inspirational as well. But I would also say, really spend some time exploring your own life experiences and look for the places where you've been incredibly successful and really dig deep into those experiences and explore why you were successful. And it could be anything. It could be learning to drive a car. It could be the day that your child came home and had got a really good report from school because you contributed towards that as a parent, by the way. You know what I mean? Really?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Absolutely, you did.
Yeah, absolutely did. And I look at my 17-year-old now and he's a good citizen. You know what I mean? And it's like, I contributed towards that. And I think it's exploring those areas where you have really felt fear and you've come out of the other side of that. And what did you gain from that experience? Explore what it felt like before and then acknowledge what happened during and after that. And really dig deep into it because whatever you did, whatever you were able to draw out of yourself, you can find that again. You know what I mean?
And
But I think
apply it elsewhere,
I
like
am.
business in your, yeah.
And it's almost like you've got to draw it out and hold it in front of you and look at it properly. Explore the feelings that you had at the time. Explore what you did. Explore how you interacted with it, how you interacted with people because you were successful. And then once you have seen it, once you've acknowledged it, once you can call it, once you can name it, you can find it again and you can keep finding it. And I tell you, one of the things this is something that I do for sure. I do this thing where I imagine what the other side's going to look like. How's that going to feel when I am successful? What is success going to look like? I do that visionary bit. And I always find that really helpful because I know on the other side, that's what's waiting for me. Because it always has. It's proved itself over and over again.
It's a bit of manifestation, isn't it? Or
Yes.
we call it IVVM, idealize,
Yeah.
visualize, verbalize,
Yeah.
materialize. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, is it a woman thing? I don't know. I think we downplay our successes and we downplay our skills and our capabilities. Perhaps we don't acknowledge them as much as we should. In fact, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. Sometimes she talks about being a diva. And I said, you're not being a diva. What you're doing is acknowledging your successes. You're acknowledging your accomplishments. There's nothing diva-ish about that. And if you want to call it being a diva, you go ahead and call it that. You know what I mean? But in a positive way. Don't see it as a negative. Be a diva. Be selfish. Blow your own trumpet
I
sometimes.
think we need more divas.
I think we need more divas. Yeah, absolutely. And don't see being a diva as a negative. It's not a negative. It's just finding your space and holding that space. And if you want to call it a diva, call it that. If you want to call it Mildred, call it that. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you call it. Just hold that space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant place to stop. I could talk to you all day or listen to you all day.
I could talk all day, sorry.
I'm running out of time. Yeah. Paula, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on Skill Her Up. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for asking me.
And thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Skill Her Up, the Female Entrepreneurs Show. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and join the Facebook community at Scale Her Up. Connect with me, I'm Dr. Brenda Hector, on social media. Drop me a message, let me know if you're enjoying the podcasts. And I'll finish by reminding you that only 1 in 3 UK entrepreneurs are female, and men are 5 times more likely to scale their business to over $1 million in turnover than women are. And when we start and scale our businesses to the same extent as men, it will add 250 billion to the UK economy and provide millions of jobs. Ladies, you can do it and make a difference. Just like Paula said, you're making a difference.